All right, so it is Tuesday, August 20th, 2019, 7 o'clock. My name is J.P. Espinosa, I'm the planning board chair. We have 4 members in attendance. The only person that's out is Brendan. He couldn't make it tonight due to a work conflict. We're going to start off by reviewing the agenda and then go from there.
JP, before you start, a couple of meetings ago, I asked members of the board 5 questions, but everybody wasn't here, and I was wondering if I could give everybody a chance for their input.
Is this in regards to?
This is in regards to Ms. Lane.
Okay. Let's see, maybe when we get down to other business, after we get through everything else that's on the agenda,
Fine, thank you.
we can discuss it. Well, we'll vote to discuss on it then, okay? Okay, so for the first thing, it's a review July 16th meeting minutes. You guys go through those and you good? Okay. Let me take a quick look at that. Yeah, it was after. So yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay. All right. Anybody have any corrections for July? All right. So all those in favor of accepting the meeting minutes as true and accurate?
Second.
All right. Yeah. Second, and then all those in favor. Sorry, I'll get this one day.
Yeah.
Best chance.
I know. So these are good. You gonna sign them? All right. August 6th. Workshop meeting minutes. Today's the 28th.
Where's Michelle and Brea?
Let's see. Did I leave a pen back there?
No pens on the desk.
Oh.
Random one.
All right, so for the August 6th meeting minutes, does anybody have anything? No? Okay. I motion to accept the meeting minutes by vote.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, ayes have it. Then let's go on to August 13th, public hearing minutes. Does anybody have anything on the public hearing? Still getting? Anybody have anything? No? All right, motion to accept the meeting minutes by vote?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. All right. So, that's the easy part. All right, Watson Woods subdivision. So we got a packed house tonight. Everyone is gonna, hopefully be very cordial and respectful of each other. You know, talking over each other.
Can I
You know,
stress that this is not a public meeting,
right.
and that any input from the public is at your discretion.
So, let's see. Review workshop discussion, August 6th, workshop, scheduling consultants, discussion of site walk and public hearing review. So first, let's start with the workshop. I think the workshop was pretty productive. I appreciate everybody that was able to make it, and those that didn't, I hope you guys got a chance to look at things on the internets. Where are they at? Okay. So I think the first thing from that workshop was we discussed getting consultants to review this plan. So
I put out about 5 calls. We've got 3 people responded, 2 people declined immediately, 3 people responded. It looks like we really only got 1 quote, and that's from CES and Brewer, but he did state that he has no conflict of interest and he can handle it all. There was one in Portland, FB, that declined. They said they could handle it all. They recommended Ransom. We've got an email from Ransom, but it looks like Ransom might be, it might take a little bit more to actually work with them.
So the one with the quote, do they have an estimated time?
Yep, 2 weeks, he said. 2 weeks it would take them. Let's see right here. 3,500, 2 weeks, and they have no conflict of interest with the developer or the engineer. And that is CES out of Brewer.
And just to reiterate that, did you give them the 5 things that they were looking for?
I
And then-
forwarded, yeah, it's all in the email here. I forwarded the PDFs on the application and explained to them what we wanted them to specifically review, which is what we discussed. You know, the high intensity soil test, stormwater management, wildlife impact. They would need to measure the site distance and, what was it, landscape plans.
Okay.
So CES has got a bid in, they're together. I mean, it'd be great if we had a few to choose from.
Mhm.
Was that,
Right now, we don't.
So I saw an email, I think it was sent to the planning board, that's not the one that they use.
That was Ransom.
They're going to use
Yeah,
that
that's out of
as soil.
Portland, yes, that's out of Portland. Now, I guess he said he would find somebody else if he had to.
Right, but he uses them.
Right. And FB was out of Portland also, they just declined to take the job.
And Ransom, was that the one that might have an over conflict of interest?
He uses Mark Hampton, so that would be,
Right, okay.
I think they said they would use somebody else, but they didn't offer an actual dollar quote.
Okay. What's your recommendation?
I'd love to just go with CES because they're ready, you know, they could do it in 2 weeks. It would, I mean, I don't know how you folks feel, I mean, I'd like to just get it done, right? I figured. So, CES, have you ever heard of them? They're out of Brewer,
I've not heard of them.
so there's no conflict of interest with you guys either.
Never dealt with them.
Right? So I'd like to just mail them the package, you know, maybe contact them tomorrow, tell them that we'd like to have them review it and mail them the package.
You gonna make a motion?
Sure.
Before we make the motion,
Yeah.
I think there's an issue that has to be dealt with before we even hire a consultant. That's the issue of density as it's defined in our ordinance. I read the letter from Mr. Austin, Ms. McNally, and you're correct in that the comprehensive plan, which has been cited so far, does not overrule ordinances. I want to read 2 things from the ordinances, Defining density in rural residential areas. Article 2, land use district and uses, and the reason I'm reading this now is, unless this is resolved, to spend the applicant's money on consultants would be somewhat putting the cart ahead of the horse.
Where are you reading from?
I'm reading from the Land Use and Development Ordinance, page 14, number C. Purpose of the rural residential district is primarily to provide low-density residential housing in areas of Parsonsfield. Now, the applicant has stated that that means lots of 2 acres, which is correct. However, in the appendix to the subdivision regulations, we have a definition which seems to contradict that. And I'll read it, 4401 definition, number 1, densely developed area. Densely developed area means any commercial, industrial, or compact residential area of 10 or more acres with an existing density of at least one principal structure per 2 acres. Now, this development is right on the borderline of that definition. As much as it's 8 acres that are being developed and the 8 acres they're holding plus the other area that's being retained. However, we don't have an existing definition of low-density development that I can find in our ordinances. So what I'm suggesting is that we really need to, before we proceed, we really need to see if what's written here allows for that development.
So, Brendan asked me to relay like his thoughts on this because he wasn't able to make the meeting tonight. And I hope I do them justice. Okay, I'll share those with you guys, and then I'll share my thoughts. So it's his view that yes, you know that they are right on that border, but the ordinance, as it's written, has subdivisions allotted in every single zone, to include resource conservation zones. And that needs to be looked at as a whole, and that needs to be addressed, but that's something that should happen after the application is done, because the application was submitted within our existing ordinance.
Where does it say that that has to be done before we look at the application? Don't we have to vote then?
What do you mean?
He's just giving his what Brendan's thoughts are.
Right.
We're not doing anything.
So, they do meet the acreage thing, and he thinks that it should not, even though it's concerning, it does concern him, it's not something that should hold this application up as far as the density portion of it. Now, that's what his thoughts are. Mine are, if we're talking strictly about density and subdivisions, this is not the only subdivision that we've had in the Parsonsfield area. You know, this is one of many that have been approved over the last few years. And I'm not saying that we should ever base an application on status quo, what's been done in the past, but it is a subdivision. We are talking about 8 houses, which are going to have 2 or more acres on them. This is not a cluster development. I don't feel, and I just had a neighbor move in 25 feet on the other side of my property line, that would be more, that this subdivision would be more intrusive than what just happened to me with somebody with 5 acres. You know, and for me, like these lots have a proposed area of where the houses can go, and I don't think that that's been a concern of myself or any of the other board members until we started talking about this density topic. Nobody at any point said the houses are too close together. I don't know. That's just my personal, like, I guess personal take on it, and professional feelings that, you know what, yes, does it increase the density in our rural, is rural residential or rural in general? Yeah, it does. We're talking about 8 additional houses in a small area. But are we talking about cluster development? We're not talking about condos. We're not talking about apartment buildings. We're talking about 8 houses that are spaced just as much as these guys are here on 160 from Mudgett going on down. So.
I hear what you're saying. Again, we don't want to get into comparing different districts, but I think what makes more sense to me is what Brandon's saying. This is not clearly defined. It should be, and maybe this board should do it, but it might not be applicable to this application because it's not clearly defined. And I mean, this is what I got from what you're saying, what Brendan said.
Yeah.
That makes a little more sense to me than sorry, your opinion. I don't know. What Brendan was saying is, I understand what he's saying. I'm following that.
Yeah.
Again, that's tough because there were a lot of mistakes made by previous boards, and reading the MMA manuals, that doesn't mean anything. We can't say because, and I'm not saying that's what you're saying. But again, it's an issue that has to be addressed. I just don't know if we can move the goalpost for this application. And, what are your thoughts on this? I know you had.
Well, low density is not defined as far as like an exact number of houses. We look at the chart here, table 1 on page 17. Subdivision is site plan review on every single zone that we have in this town. We can't update the ordinances during an application and change the rules because.
I think densely developed area the language leans towards not meaning low density. So I get the concern here, but I don't know how we would apply this, the ambiguous language here that's something that's not clearly defined like low density.
I don't know either, but it seems to me that by sort of just deleting what the ordinance clearly states, I understand we can't move the goalpost during an application. We're not moving it, it's right here, it was there from the beginning. It's as much our fault as the applicants that nobody addressed this. We can beg off either way you want. But it says it right here, that this is low density. Then it gives a definition for high density, which is much closer to
Densely developed is what it says, not
Right.
high density. Right, so
Densely
we can make that assumption, that leans towards high density, right? I see what you're saying, the language leads towards.
And yet, on the other hand, they're in compliance with the 2-acre lots, so I find this to be somewhat confusing. Considering the amount of, polarization we have around this development, I think it's important we turn over every stone.
My thought on this, you done?
Yeah.
My thought on this is that particularly the road that this is on, and the location on the road, and the site distances that we still do not have any formalized written document stating by Mr. Wadsworth team the actual site distances, and we've asked for it. That's one piece. Location, we know that there are problems on that site. We also know that if you look in the MMA, Title 23 MRSA 704 requires a permit from Department of Transportation or from municipal or from municipal officers for new entrances on a state aid highway. Now granted, they show us a permit, but we don't see the site distances and they have never been given to us. This is also, the permit is issued by the municipal officers, so from our town there needs to be a permit issued. If driveways will appear in the compact area. Now I did some subdividing and figuring. Lot 1, 360.62 feet, lot 2, 202. These are feet between lots. Now, what else is going to happen is when the homes are built on these lots, it's going to be below 200 feet.
So, just to clarify one thing, so the conversation that we had during the public hearing about the driveway permits, permits cannot be issued without an approved plan and approved divided lots. They can't be.
For special driveway permits, that our town has to
What do you mean that they have to? He can't issue a permit until there's a approved plan.
Town select people, right. We're still trying to approve a plan, but that, again, I believe that's the cart before the horse. That's like selling all these lots, and then the owners that buy these lots come to us and say, well, you're under 200 feet. You need a road, not a driveway.
I'm not debating it at all. All I'm saying is like, a property can't get permits until it's been approved as a separate lot. Nobody can get a building permit for that lot. They can't get a driveway
But
permit
if
from the town
we're gonna
officials.
approve this subdivision of 8 houses,
Mhm.
and nothing is built, and the house, and the lots sit there to be sold, and then somebody goes to try to do this, and we have a problem, that's putting the cart before the horse. We have to,
That's why we're vetting the plan.
Correct.
Beforehand.
Yeah.
And just to point, there are some distances all listed in this most recent application.
yeah,
527, 617,
Yeah,
I mean, they
it's
are.
under section 15, right?
And again, that's why we're also hiring a third-party consultant to
to
confirm
take them,
those.
correct.
So
I also,
it's inaccurate to say
yeah, I'm
that
not
they're
done
not.
speaking yet. I also believe that lot 7 is questionable whether or not it's 2 acres. And on another point, in last week's conversation with Tom, the biologist, he said there was nothing of any significance within a quarter mile, any wildlife significance. Well, I beg to differ. The Levitt plantation is less than a quarter of a mile away and it has endangered species on it. It's right there, it's a buddy.
Okay.
Can you speak to the density though? You sent us all an email.
Yeah.
And can you explain that? Because I can't find where you're coming from.
Well, let's put it this way. As far as the senior town member on this board, I am. You weren't born when I came here. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
I fail to understand why that makes a
Well,
difference.
because I remember our ordinances very clearly. And it was defined in our ordinances before some things disappeared, that a minor subdivision was 4 houses or less. And it's not in our current ones.
But how's that
Things have
applicable to where we're at?
What is it, how does it apply to density?
No, how is the fact that it used to be in the ordinance applicable to what we're dealing with today? You know, like,
Because I don't know where it
we-
went. I don't know where it went. And the comprehensive plan wasn't changed. The comprehensive plan is the will of the people. The reason why I'm bringing these points up is that I keep hearing the will of the people, and they question whether or not that this is a large or small subdivision. And as far as my research, this qualifies as a large subdivision. 200 feet apart, homes, that's the same distance apart in the village location right now. So we're gonna permit what's going on in the village. It may even be less than 200 feet apart. If the houses are built, that's gonna be another village, just a short way out of town.
Well, I would say I share your concerns about density, but I feel that what we'd have to do about that is act as a board to address that in
And
the
that's
future.
why,
I mean, in the future, with future application, what we have to do is define low density. We have to work as a board to get the definitions inserted. And I don't think we can fairly do that with this application. Believe me, I'd love to see this development about half the size it is. I would love to see that. I mean, we can't just do it because we want to do it, though.
well, Andy has found some stuff and in
I'd love
addition stuff.
I'd love to be convinced. I'd love to be shown how we can apply this.
Well, the will of the people ultimately is what the comprehensive
We have
plan
due
is.
process. We're trying.
I understand that, but the comprehensive plan is put forth by the will of the people, and if we see things in the comprehensive plan supporting,
In all fairness, the ordinances were voted in by the people as well. You know, like, it's not like the board made this up, or we came on and we assumed or changed anything. We're going off what was voted in by the town. The ordinances, the comprehensive plan, it all needs updating. I absolutely agree with that.
Well, I don't remember the definition of low density and small, and.
We have minor
Minor
subdivisions and major subdivisions.
I-
Minor is 4 and under, and major is
The
8 and
minor,
above.
right, the minor subdivision, I recall seeing it very clearly in our past ordinances.
I'm sure
And
it's
I
still
know
there.
where it's coming.
We've got a definition between minor and major subdivisions.
And their application actually is for a major subdivision.
Right, but I'm saying that, I'm saying that in that rural residential zone,
Yeah, no, and I agree with you, but we can't, I don't see how, I mean, I'd love to explain to me how the ordinance can be applied there. I've been looking at this for quite some time. Density was one of the first things I keyed into on this, and I could not find a way to apply this. I'm not claiming to be the smartest guy in the world, but I've been looking at it for a while. Show me, and I'll vote with it. Show me how we can apply this density.
There's, as far as I went through the entire, both the subdivision regulations and the land use regulations and the comprehensive plan twice each, trying to find a low density definition. I cannot find it. There's nothing in this existing ordinance that restricts them from having a subdivision in that. And I cannot find anything that says they have to have a minor subdivision.
Right.
My only problem is it comes too close to the definition of high density,
Right.
and I don't want to water down our regulations, unless we know, what our authority is to do so.
Now, when you say it comes too close, would you say that it falls within the line, or is it too close, like right
They've got
outside the
8
line?
lots, all the lots are slightly over 2 acres.
Right.
So in that regard, that's 16 acres, so it's more than 10 acres.
Mhm.
10 acres required. The only place it comes close to the line is the fact they have slightly over 2 acres per lot,
Mhm.
and they have this retained acreage, which if you count it in, makes the density lower, but it doesn't really make the density lower in terms of how the subdivision presents physically. It makes it lower on paper.
Okay, and I agree, if we had a house every 2 acres in rural, that would be highly developed, I agree. But I think
That's
the
what we're
board,
looking at.
but that's what we're looking at.
well, I think,
That's what we're looking at.
yeah, but we.
We can act as a board.
Sorry, the flying guys.
Rick, I'm not trying to overrule.
No, I know.
We can make
This is-
decisions as a board.
But I don't think we can make arbitrary decisions
No.
on loose language like this. I
I
think
think
this,
we can make definitions, I'm not entirely sure of that.
it's like switching horses and crossing the
I
stream.
know.
I mean, we
Well,
can't do that to them.
So,
Believe me, I would love to see this development shrink, but to switch a definition when we're right at the final plan, I don't think we can do that. I really don't. I think they could
This has been
sue us.
going on, maybe they can, but this has been going on for a very long time, with a lot of due diligence, a lot of confusion.
Yep.
I don't think just because you're close to the finish line, you
All
suddenly
right,
say,
right.
okay, let's do
All right, I agree. You're
Mr.
right.
Bauer, just before you leave, I've got a question for you, pertains to this, you got a second? So,
second.
so,
That's a good point.
the statement that, the density used to be defined in the ordinance, do you know, like, if that was actually there and why it might have changed over time?
I don't. The subdivision ordinance, aside from one definition that was unrelated to that, has not changed and did not change in my tenure as code enforcement officer. I think it was last modified in 2005, aside from that one definition.
Okay,
I'll see if I can find some old ordinances.
okay, cool, I appreciate it. Alright, so,
So what would you suggest, I guess?
Well, what would you suggest? I mean, I don't really have a position, except that
No, it's a concern. I agree, it's a
I'm
concern.
puzzled by this, and,
But I don't think we can do anything about it with the current application is the way I feel. I think we have to
we're gonna
address
need to
it.
get some consult on that from our lawyer.
I mean, sure, we could ask him, right? But I
what
think
would
we,
the question be, specifically?
We'll just present briefly, and I can write it up, what exactly what we're looking at. Does it, present a conflict, and what remedies we have, if any?
Okay. And by conflict, you mean between the two
Between the two ordinances
definitions?
and the existing final plan that they submitted.
Okay,
So that we're not making this up out of our own opinions, our own inclinations, but we get somebody who's objective and understands the law.
I think the low density definition can go either way. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, so we have just as much right to look at that in terms of what it is as the Watson Woods people are deciding, and I think that's where the lawyer comes in, to give us the information.
I would say that the lawyer would probably be more of somebody giving us his legal opinion on the current wording, how it stands, and what the applicability is. More than like if we can change anything, you know?
Well, it does have to do with that, because he may say you have every right to make that decision right now and change it one way or the other.
He may say anything. I'm just saying,
And
like,
he may not.
but
Right.
when we're talking
Probably
about.
won't say anything that definitive, I'm sure he doesn't,
Right.
he's a lawyer, it would be very heavy.
Well, we could get some procedural advice too, you know, instead of just, we've done it before. I don't see
Sure,
what-
sure. No, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, I don't think it should slow the application. I think we should hire the consultant. I think we
I'm
should.
fine with that.
Yeah.
You know,
I
I
mean,
mean, no
I-
intention, I don't
Right,
really
right, no,
want to
no,
deal
I-
with this anymore, I tell you the truth.
Yeah, me
So-
too.
So, a game plan going forward then would be that you could write this up in a statement. We could ask Mr. Laurie and ask for a definitive answer back by the next meeting
Sure.
that happens on this. Because we're looking at 2 weeks for the consultants. Now, do you guys want to give the applicants a chance to speak on this at all, or are you guys all set?
I'm okay with allowing them to speak on it.
Okay.
Well, you have, for the record, Ralph Austin and Amy McNally for the applicant, you have the letter that Amy drafted, I forget she signed it, but she drafted it on the issue of comprehensive plan versus ordinance. So I'm not really gonna get into that, but as far as the appendix provision that Andy mentioned, one, we have 50-some acres that we have in 8 lots on. I understand you say that's just on paper, but you're also looking at a condition of approval that there be no further development on that retained land without coming back to the board. That's one. Two, the development is more than the 8 lots times 2.0 acres. There's 8 acres of open space. It's really for the development, 27 acres, which is divided by 8 lots is one structure for every 3-something acres. So it's not right on the line if you look at, and the development has to include the open space. And then just finally, one, we'd like to be copied on the email to David Laurie so we can give our input, but the board can't make up definitions, it can't. It's got to deal with the ordinance as it exists, and whether it's perfect or imperfect. The townspeople certainly in the future can vote to make amendments, but you have to deal with the ordinance as it is, and there is no definition of low density. And we don't trigger the definition in the appendix of high density.
Maybe you can ask David Laurie.
I will, you know.
Okay. Did you have a question for them?
No, I would like to, since our folks here had a chance to speak, I would like to put it out to anybody in the public who can vote on it, that wants to put more will of the people input it. There's some
We
new
can
faces,
vote on
new-
it.
Yes, we can vote on it.
You can motion for it.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to see how many in this group would permit any of the public to speak.
Any seconds?
Regarding what?
And what we're talking about, the topic.
I'll second it if we time limit it.
Yes, I agree.
Half
2
an hour.
minutes.
How much? 20 minutes?
Half an hour.
Half an hour?
Per
Okay.
person?
Half an hour.
No,
No,
total.
How about 2 minutes per person?
2 minutes per person sounds much better. Per
Just put
person
it out
called
there.
on.
with a half hour total, so. more
Oh,
than
yeah.
2 minutes, Okay?
Yeah. So,
Second that.
second, all those in favor? All those opposed? I just gotta be different today. Yeah, my thing is, like, we just had the public meeting, I think we've gone through all this stuff, but let's do it again.
Anybody wants to share any
All
more
right.
on this?
All right, so, who, yes,
Of course, you knew it was gonna be me, right? I'll just say that there is the spirit of the law and the letter of the law, and I agree, we really need to put this to David Laurie. And if you would like some help, Andy, with the wording, because I've been here before, just give us a call, give our office a call.
Anyone else?
Well, despite,
Todd Crocker, Parsons.
yeah, Croker.
Crocker, excuse me.
I have to disagree with about making changes to definitions at midstream. I know when I was on the board back, I believe that subdivision has an amendments in it from 2005. We did put some new provisions in there. We also did some cleaning up as far as administrative. The administrative only had to be voted by the board. And we had guidance when we did, separating changes in some of the wording and what the wording meant, whether it was administrative or whether we were actually changing it. I don't think the board can change definitions at this juncture. They can put it before the town. If it's not clear, well, it would be a good idea to have the lawyer, look at it. But I think he's gonna say the same thing. This is not an administrative change. Probably be one that's more critical than that, which would make it something that the town would have to vote on. And I will tell you, the administrative changes were things like changing will or shall, or how things were actually written to make them clearer. Not that they would actually change the wording of that particular rule or regulation.
Thank you. Thank you for that insight. Who else? Anybody else? Okay. All right. So, then going forward,
I'm not really sure how we would pay the independent consultant, so I can send the package out to him.
Well,
but
I do have a note on it.
Okay.
Let's see. Their escrow balance is currently somewhere around 3,700. So,
That's just enough.
well, however, when it gets drawn down to 75%, we can ask for, I think it's $25 per lot.
Right. The quote on this was 3,500.
Yep. So it will draw it down below 75%. And
Right.
if you guys want to decide if you want to ask them for more money, because there probably are going to be more newspaper ads and whatnot. So.
Alright, so one other thing, Ralph, is he's requested stakes to actually measure the site distance, so he would like the proposed driveway staked. Maybe we could even forward this email to you.
No, Tom is aware of that.
I assume that's the center line of the driveway, of each driveway.
I don't know, that's why we're hiring, that's why we didn't want to measure it, because we don't know.
But yeah, Thomas.
I mean, we can forward this information to you, and if you have any questions, you can contact CES out of Brewer. Alright, so we'll do that. Maybe just forward the whole email exchange to you.
Fine. And just let us know, 3,700 is kind of tight, it's an escrow, so just let us know what amount you think.
Okay. So we should have an answer back in 2 weeks. That means by the next meeting, we should know
we gotta make a motion for it. Let's vote on it.
to what?
To hire them as consultant.
Okay, then I make a motion to hire CES out of Brewer, Maine as the independent consultant.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right, ayes have it. Now, I'll also make a motion that Andy draft up an email to Mr. Laurie, and we need to get the authorization from the select board to use him again. But once that email is done, you can forward it to our wonderful secretary, and she can forward it to the select board requesting services from David Laurie.
Okay, and if you guys wanna be CC'd, I'll probably need your email contacts. I only have a phone number for your office. Yep.
I still have serious questions about the payment for the legal, any legal fees, including the lawyer, should be come from the escrow, that escrow account. We shouldn't take it out of.
I think Brendan made a really good point at the public hearing about that. He did. That really sunk into me. It's stuff that hasn't been done for years, and we basically just got caught up on years worth of stuff.
I know, but I don't think that's, his point was anything.
You don't think it's valid?
Yeah, I don't think it's valid. Yeah, I don't think it's valid.
Then he's not here to hear that.
Anything to do, yeah, anything to do with any.
Again, the original intent of the board was that it be reconciled through the consulting fees. Now, the select board is the one that authorizes the town lawyer to be used, and they're the one that ultimately decides where those funds are drawn from. They decided that the town has a legal line of fees and that it could be absorbed in there, and then if there was any shortages, they'd look at the planning board.
Still, I'm talking about the taxpayers. Town money comes from all of the taxpayers.
Mhm.
And this constant need for our lawyer should come from that escrow account that his law firm, Mr. Wadsworth Law Firm, should be putting money in for any time we need to consult a lawyer. And it's coming from our taxpayer dollars.
I don't think that's something that the planning board can decide. That it's something you could probably write a letter to the select board and talk with them about, because it ultimately is their decision. It's not ours.
Yeah, but this is this is separate thing. Anytime we need legal consultation, we shouldn't be taking from taxpayer money. Not in regards to subdivisions, minor, major, whatever it
Well,
is.
I think the other thing is, though, like, our legal representation hasn't been specifically like about their application. It's about our ordinances and what's been applicable. You know, like the definitions of different things. Like
But if we didn't have the Woods project, we wouldn't be hiring a lawyer for that. So it's indirect.
There's, I
No,
think
our
that's
cost-
what
our
he was
costs are
quoting. That's the only thing.
Correct.
That's his part.
I thank you.
Yep.
Here's I don't mean to cut you short, this is
Go
about
ahead.
what you were
Go ahead.
talking about. So, 1997, the subdivision, Appendix A, Title 30A, Chapter 2, Subchapter 4. The definition of densely developed area, and again, this is not in this ordinance, this is just probably what you're referring to. It says densely developed area means any commercial, industrial, or compact residential area of 10 or more acres with an existing density of at least one principal structure per 2 acres. That's the same thing, yeah. That's the only thing he can find back to 97. So maybe there was something before that.
I think it changed when our zones got a little more lax. But anyway, back to that. I personally think that the information that Brendan gave us, not any legal information, that's just his opinion, and that all of these fees from lawyers that are related to the Watson Woods development should be money put into the escrow account.
Well, I think JP's point is we can't do that. We gotta talk to the select board about that.
Probably rather go to the town, probably go to town meeting as an ordinance or something.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Again,
that could be an amendment to the ordinance too, you know, like, to put it to town vote.
Well, I think we should take it serious about the taxpayer dollars.
I think everybody takes it serious, it's just like, it's not our lane to decide that. And that's the frustrating thing, is everyone says, hey, the board, you should be taking money from here, don't be taking it from the taxpayers. Well, it's not our decision. You know, that's the end of the line, like the select board, yes, Stephanie.
I am from the select board, and I can tell you, you spoke to David Laurie on this exact subject, and he was of two minds, and I will say, if you put 10 attorneys in a room, and ask them the same question, you're liable to get 10 different opinions, okay? So he was of two minds. His first mind was that if he was acting as a consultant strictly on this particular issue and not a town attorney, he could then charge back, or could be charged through the town to the applicant. But because he's a town attorney, and it wasn't just this one situation, he couldn't, in all fairness or legally, charge through the town to charge back to the applicant, okay? He also said, most other attorneys, if we hired an attorney, if they were hired as a consultant strictly to work on this project, more than likely, that could be charged to the applicant, even though they were an attorney, okay? So as opposed to dealing with David Laurie on the situation going forward, although right now you do have to, because you have to get definitions, so that's not just for this applicant, that would be for the town's ordinances. Going forward, you might want to look at an attorney that's not hired as a town attorney, but hired as a consultant. So going forward, you might want to think about that, because that can be charged back to the applicant, but not a town attorney. The attorney works for the town. That's why we made the decision to charge back the planning board as opposed to the applicant, because he's working for the town. His second mind on that was, yeah, charge the applicant, but he said that wouldn't be legal, so.
They're the exact opposite.
Yeah,
Imagine that.
two answers, yep. One guy, two answers.
All right, so I guess we've got that cleared up, right?
There's mud.
I mean, you might be not happy, but it's cleared up.
How many more times are you gonna need Mr. Laurie? Maybe we should look for a separate attorney, and if we have to keep banging our heads against the wall, we, the taxpayer, we can pay for it.
Maybe we'll address that if it comes up, right? So at this point, I think, can we get them out here? Can we plan, we're gonna hire the independent consultant. We should have some results back in 2 weeks. Do you wanna be on the agenda for the next meeting?
Sure.
I mean, I guess that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
I mean, we gotta seal this up, we gotta put a vote on this. So, I don't know, I mean, at this point, we're gonna hire the consultant. We'll forward you the emails. If he's got any questions, he can contact you directly.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll assume you'll be on the agenda for the next meeting unless something happens.
Yeah, if the consultant comes back and
Yeah.
says, sorry, but
Yeah.
it's gonna take 4 weeks. then-
Sure. Right.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up was just, per our minutes here, there was a request to have the abutters list double checked.
Yeah.
Some of the names may have changed since the first application. I don't know if you've had a chance to do that.
I did, and we can provide an updated list to that effect. I think there were maybe two changes that
There are
we
a
did
few.
know. Yeah, so I can certainly get that to the board too.
Okay, thank you.
We're talking September 17th.
Third Tuesday in September.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should get back from Dave Laurie by then too.
Awesome, so I'll get it done tomorrow.
You'll copy us on David Laurie's email.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Okay, next on the agenda, 26 Reed Lane, pre-meeting for auto wreck vehicle small engine repair shop, determine completeness of application, issue date received, complete application, schedule site walk, and a public hearing. All right,
If you want to write.
Mr. Moreau.
Yes.
Very good. All right. Give us 1 second. We appreciate your guys' patience as we've been working through everything.
There's two things missing that I noticed last time. Did you get a call from Lindsay?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so we need one setback we don't have here.
I gave her a revised thing, she was supposed to fax them to you, I believe so.
Okay.
Hey Lindsay? Is this the revised one that he sent in later? The
Yeah, so
setbacks?
if you look,
Updated
you'll see
last
one updated, yeah, the last map.
Oh, okay. Take care. I just wanted to make sure, so the deed says this is in West Newfield, but it's actually in Parsonsfield?
In Parsonsfield.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the whole property of West Newfield.
Okay. Yeah, because it says an easement and real property in the town of Newfield, County of York, and State of Maine described as follows. I just want to make sure you're at the right board. Yeah, well, and it even says there, like, if you got Maplewood Road in the town of Parsonsfield.
Just worded wicked weird.
Yeah. Who do you pay your taxes to on it?
You got it.
All right. There we go.
You can ask you a question, is the garage already there?
Yes. Yeah.
Are you gonna be building anything new? No? Okay. So are we talking like lawnmowers,
Some car work,
okay,
light car work.
alright. And so, just what we're looking at with this application,
I basically rebuild old cars and stuff.
okay,
That's what I do for a hobby and a little bit of money on the side.
yeah,
And I do work on lawnmowers and small engines and various things of that nature.
okay,
I mean, my neighbors would have you think that I do a lot more than that, but.
yeah.
He does.
But I do come in and out of the driveway, I mean, I have a lot of friends.
40 times a day.
There's no-
30 to 40.
Alright, wait, hey, so,
In
here's how,
that spirit, there's no law against how many times I go in and out of the driveway.
Actually, there is.
here, okay,
Okay.
wait 1 second, alright. So, this is how we run our meetings.
No problem.
Yeah, this is generally how we run our meetings.
Yeah, it's true. So, the one thing I will ask again is, everyone will get a chance to speak. Nobody will speak over each other. You'll get a chance to speak. Give me 1 second, sir. And I understand that abutters and other people in the community may be concerned about an application. That's exactly what this process is for. The process in itself, through our ordinance, allows anyone in the town of Parsonsfield as an applicant to submit an application which will be reviewed by the board. As part of that application, we look at things to make sure it meets the law and the letter of the ordinance, but we also open it up to the public to hear their concerns about any application that's going before us, and we make sure that they have a voice. And I'm assuming the butters here got notices from the town?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So that's the first part of that process. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask the applicant a few questions, and then after the applicant is done answering those questions, we're gonna open it up to other members in the audience and abutters to make any statements. Yes, sir?
My understanding is that this meeting is specifically about the application, not about abutters' opinions or whatever it is. That this meeting is specifically whether the application is complete,
Okay.
and
This is a pre-meeting,
if not,
sorry. Yeah.
it's corrected or not corrected,
Mhm.
and that 30 days to 35 days from now, that is when a public hearing to be held. So, actually, is that correct?
And it's correct about the timeline thing. So this is a pre-meeting. I didn't realize that this was an application, a complete application. So once the board says, hey, this is a complete application, we'll be able to vote on it.
Okay.
That's when that timeline starts ticking.
So this meeting is basically just about whether the application is complete. Correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. So, gentlemen,
As far as I can see, it's complete. Once again, I looked at it when I first came here, and all I could see was missing was the one setback, and you needed, you gonna have any signage?
Out front. I put on the top there on that same revised thing,
Okay.
2x2 sign. Roadside.
Okay.
I'll sign 2x2. What's the proposed business name?
If I get it,
Good. Well,
Big Cat Repair.
Big Cat Repair.
That'll be the name of it.
Okay. What about DEP stuff? Anybody know anything about that yet?
But I have heard people express concerns about storing oil and things on site. And I noticed it said it's a home. Is it gonna continue to be a home, or are you converting it? So you do live there, and it will be a home business?
I don't think that's unvaluable, you know? I think that it's a permitted use, and if it's a permitted use in this district, that's what we go on, not enforcing
I'm not,
DEP rules.
I'm not talking about enforcement stuff. I just wanted to know, like, if there was anything DEP wise to run that sort of business, if they would have to bring in like a storage tank or something like that, you know, like for oil and hazardous chemicals.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I know there's shops of that size all through here.
Yeah. Right, and I just bring that up because it's something you guys might wanna look at as a condition, on the application as you discuss it.
Will the sign be illuminated?
No.
I mean, I personally would like to hear some of the concerns that the abutters might have. You know, is there a specific issue you'd like addressed, or?
I'm addressing the application,
Sure, so.
which we're supposed to be here for.
Right, so
Okay.
do you have a concern about the application here?
Sure. To start off with, the existing use of site, he claims, is a home.
Oh, what's your name and residence?
Michael Nelligan, I'm a rebutter,
Okay,
okay?
alright.
Existing use of site, home. The existing use of the site has been an auto garage, auto repair, auto sales for the past 3 to 4 years. So that's my first question. Second, site plan content. Number 2, section A, name and addresses of all, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at a different, if he's revised it, maybe I don't know. Name and addresses of all property owners within 500 feet of the edge of the property line. Well, he does abut Newfield, and there's 2 abutting properties in Newfield, which are 500 feet from Mr. Nemo. I don't know if he's addressed that or not. No? Existing conditions, location and size of any existing sewer or water mains, this is section G. H, present widths of existing right-of-way, I don't see that on this plan. J, the location and dimensions of parking, I don't see any parking.
He's also in a resource conservation zone. Is it right here?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm just continuing. Would you like me to continue?
I'm sorry.
Yep. Now we're on L. Location of open drainage courses, wetlands, stands of T's, and other important natural features with descriptions of features to be retained. I have a pond that abuts Mr. Moreau's property, and it does drain into his property, and I believe it does drain back behind his garage. Proposed development activity, Q. Location and dimensions of parking. Wow. Let's see, according to table 4, parking requirement schedule, this is on page 27 of your Parsonsfield land use, yeah. Although Mr. Moreau on his initial permit for the garage, this is back in 2015, claimed that the proposed use would be storage. And then below he says it's a 2-car garage on a slab. So according to your table, if it is a 2-car garage, which he stated it was going to be, or storage, it's neither. It's an auto repair garage. Automobile repair garages, minimum required parking 5 spaces per bay. So I don't know how many bays he has, but according to his building permit, he has 2.
One.
Do you want to see the building permit?
It just allow me,
Okay.
I gotta speak, I'm sorry.
Let's see, this is just the application I'm on, right?
Right.
And I'm sorry, your name is?
Andy Yale.
Okay, and I know you said it was complete.
Well, I thought it was.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm just getting back to my spot here. Q, dimensions of parking, and location and type of exterior lighting, which this gentleman already asked. About signs, I think, or, no, actually, it's exterior lighting of your building.
Mhm.
Now, finally, Mr. Moreau signed it. To the best of my knowledge, all information submitted on this application is true and correct. All proposed uses will be in conformance with the application. All information submitted is true and accurate. Which he stated on his building permit, and then opened an auto garage, which has been in operation. Well, I'm just talking about the application. It's been in existence for 3.5 years to 4 years since he built the structure. Thank you.
Thank you. So, here's what we're gonna do, gentlemen. We're gonna go through this application, line by line, just like we did with Watson Woods. We're gonna take a vote whether, you feel that it's in there or not.
Do we need to do that? I mean, it's in a zone where it's prohibited.
Wait, you said it, his relaying is here, correct?
Yeah, it shows it right on the map.
Yeah, it's right here.
So that's village residential.
Isn't that resource?
No, resource is that tan color.
That would be this.
That's this guy.
So this- What's this?
Protection, research, protection.
Wetland.
Yeah, I think it's, they're talking about the zoning though. Because this is all Maplewood, so which is,
Yeah, I thought it was village residential, then it's not, then we can go through it.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because that's the same color as up in, like near the
So we
village
need a
there.
different map.
Yeah, I know, that's one thing that would be really good to get in the next year. Is an easier map. Okay. Yeah, so. All right, applicability, we're gonna go through, number 2.
2A.
I
Oh,
know.
I'm sorry.
I know,
I didn't know if you forgot this,
I don't forget much.
excellent.
Yeah, so we're gonna go through number 2, go line by line, and we're gonna have, we can go person by person, whether they believe it meets it or not, and if it doesn't, then there'll be a note to the applicant, in order to, come back with a revised application. So A, name and address of all property owners within 500 feet as your property line. The gentleman did bring up a good point, about it not including 2 abutting neighbors. I personally like to see the tax map on there, which you can print out from the town website. You go to the tax map, you look at your lot, and then it more clearly defines what locations are as opposed to this. Now, it could also be handwritten, that's fine, I'm just trying to make things
Right.
easier. And then you would need to do that additionally for Newfield as well. And when the application does come in, I have to coordinate with Newfield. I know we ran into this with was it the mill? No,
Yes.
With Will's, yeah. So whatever we did with that, we do the same.
Yeah, that's fine.
The line is right at the bottom.
Which is the property on the map that we're actually looking at?
44. 44, 12 acres, right around.
Oh, we have the tax map up there, okay, yeah. All right.
They'd have to get the other side of the tax.
No, yeah, we're good, all right.
So do you know if there are 2 abutters in Newfield that should be notified?
I'm sure there's 2 abutters in Newfield,
Right,
but
and
I wasn't aware that they needed to be notified because they weren't in Parsons.
Right, right, I
And
think-
I went over this whole application with Jesse and he said it wasn't,
Yeah, I don't
that
know.
part of it wasn't
If they're
an issue,
within.
but if it is, it is.
Yeah, I think that if they're within the distance.
Right.
I mean,
Lindsay?
I mean, I got the distance to the properties and such, but you want names and addresses, it's fine.
Well, what do we do?
So the only way I deal with it on my
I
end
already asked Trip on that.
is,
Oh, yeah.
I check their list of
Sure.
abutters they give me and I check it with our records. If they're able to provide other municipality butters,
right.
you know, I can take that and check that with the town, but he didn't, so I just checked what we had in our records.
Okay,
Um,
cool. So,
Yeah, like when we were going through the walkers, they had to notify the porter.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wasn't here for that one.
Yeah.
I just went and did it. Right, we're at.
So it'd probably be a good idea to notify the abutters in Newfield. I mean, it's gonna make the application that much better. You're obviously gonna get some resistance here, so you probably wanna make the application as good as you can.
Okay, so we'll go one by one. Does it meet criteria A? For me, the application, as of right now, I'm gonna say no.
Yeah.
A? Yeah. Andy?
What is it?
For A?
Yeah.
2A.
Oh, what, you mean, he needs more butters?
Right.
Yeah, no, so.
Cliff, you good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So A, that's a takeaway for you. B, sketch map showing general location of site within town.
He's got it.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Boundaries of all contiguous property. I love that word. Property under control of applicant owner regardless whether it's being developed or not. Yeah, I would say that the tax map takes care of that. You guys good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, copy of deed to the property, option to purchase property or documentation. We have a copy.
JP,
Yeah.
I missed one. Existing use of site, where it says home, it's been more than that for the past 3 years. We have been trying to get Mr. Moreau to clean up the property for a long time.
So,
Do you live there?
Yes, I do.
So it is your home?
Yes.
So it's not,
also a garage. I mean, it's
Right.
been operating as a garage for,
so, I do have a question I was gonna hold to the end, but like, have you had any letters of concerns from the code enforcement officer
Yes.
about this? Yes, okay,
That's why we are here doing this the legal way,
okay.
so that all my abutters and neighbors can be happy about it.
So, I will say during the meeting that this is entertained, it'd probably be a good idea to bring Jesse in to speak on this, and I don't know if Mr. Bauer had some experience with it as well, but.
Mr. Bauer's gonna be, I'm sorry,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bauer's gonna be in a butter.
Okay. Well,
so that might,
He might be-
We've had a conflict then, looking
Yeah.
for him to speak.
yeah, I'm looking for him to speak on
He's
it.
not gonna be in
we
a
could
butter.
always look to speak.
Yeah.
I'm right in that neighborhood too.
Okay,
Oh, I know.
all right,
Believe me.
listen guys,
I know.
listen guys.
I know.
Hey, I need the chit chat to calm down, please.
sorry.
Yes?
I just wanna make sure that we run a professional, timely meeting, and in order to do that, okay, we have a job that we have to do to get through this. Everyone is gonna get a chance to get heard, I promise you that. Yes, sir.
She has a deed for the right of way with her, for him.
Okay. So that's something that we can look at during the application process if his application comes incomplete. Absolutely, we can. That's all part of the
And
process.
it's right of way for a house,
Okay,
not a garage.
yes, sir. I understand that this is a highly emotional thing. Having, living in a community and having challenges with any of your neighbors is extremely hard because you live there, that's your life. When you go to relax, you're dealing with things that might be stressing you out on both sides of the coin. What we're here to do is to make sure administratively, the application can get entertained by the board to go through this process. Everyone will be heard. I understand that, and that's why the applicant's here, because something was not happening the legal way. We're trying to go through the legal process, and if at the end, this application is approved or denied, that's a legal standing that the town can take action on. Because if the town says, no, this is not allowed here, this application is denied, and it continues to do so, then that gives the town the bite, the backing to be able to take action on things. Now, on the flip side, if it is approved by the board, that means he is legally allowed to do it. That's what this process is here for. It's an administrative process. Yes, sir.
Sorry.
You know,
How about let's push through
Let's
this
go
here.
through
Yeah,
this.
It's already 10 after 8, this isn't a public hearing,
Yeah.
let's get on
Okay.
this.
Let's go with D, copy of deed, property, got that.
Yeah.
All right. E, registration number and seal land surveyor, architect, or
Doesn't seem to apply.
yeah, not applicable. F, bearings and distance of all property lines of property developed and source of information.
I don't think anything's to be developed, huh? It's already developed, it's just to be utilized in a specific way, so that doesn't seem to apply.
Yeah, let's
I mean,
see.
we've got the distance of all property lines.
So is there a north on here?
You got the tax.
On the tax map? Yeah, okay. All right.
That doesn't really give you.
So, F. Anybody
Looks good to me.
have anything?
Bearings and distances of all property lines.
Well, really, all we got for property lines is a sketch.
Right. So, and how were these measurements taken?
Tape measure,
Okay,
and a lot of walking.
yeah. Okay,
I mean, I think it's.
I think it's okay.
Yeah.
all right. Cliff, you got anything on that? On F? Nate? Okay, going to G, location and size of an existing sewer, water mains, culverts, and drains that will serve to develop, whether on or off the property, along the direction of existing surface water drainage across the site. So,
I don't see.
now on your hand drawn sketch here, the updated one, do you have drainage going, is there drainage going out of the right of way? Is there a culvert there?
There's a culvert,
Okay.
right through the right of way.
That needs to be updated on a map. Any wells?
On the property.
Yeah.
The one I drink from.
Right,
Yeah.
put it on there.
Okay.
And if anything else, you know, it's gonna show how
In
close.
comparison, yeah.
Right, okay.
Same thing with the septic system.
More information
I mean,
is
you
always
got-
better.
I think he said not to bother with septic system,
Yeah.
but you guys got that plan on for that.
Wetlands, any swamp, anything like that,
Quite a ways away, but yes.
well, just let us know where it is.
Yeah. So more is always better, because the more information that we have
Right.
to look at, it's gonna make a more informed decision, okay? So for G, I would say that some of that needs to be added in there. You guys are on concurrence? Okay. H, location, names, and present widths of existing streets, right-of-ways within adjacent properties. Again, your right-of-way, you need to get the distance of how big that is,
The width and.
the width. Okay, so that's a start. Location, dimensions of ground floor elevations above, of all existing proposed buildings in the site. Do you have the elevations on here? I don't think they do.
No, we're not, but
I
is
don't,
that necessary?
yeah, I don't know that we've had that before.
Dimensions.
Right,
Yeah, I don't know if we need.
It's like, I think it's just, you know, we got a height limit.
Yeah.
That's all, you know, I think that's all.
There's nothing being constructed.
Nothing
Yeah.
being constructed, so I don't see where you're applied for.
okay. So would you guys say it's not applicable?
Yeah, that's what I would say.
My,
It says ground floor elevation.
right, I would say go on to NRCS, pull out their soil map, because it has the ground elevation. You can put an address in, print it out. My concern, like with an operation like this, is any runoff of chemicals, and if he's on a
If it's a
hill,
low site, or if it's, yeah, right.
if he's on a hill and his neighbors, like this is washing down to him, that would be a concern of mine.
So what are you saying, we should get the, distance from sea level, I mean, the height from sea level over there, or what?
Well, so if you go onto nrcs.gov, nrcs.gov, by the way, so we record all of our meetings here. It's gonna be on YouTube probably within what, like a week or two?
Yeah.
Within a week. You can review this as you go along. You can access it from the town webpage. But if you go onto nrcs.gov, you can enter in your address. There's a free soil survey there, which will show what type of soils you have on your land. It'll show elevations of different points on your land. Just print that out and put it in the application, because it'll make it so much easier for the board to get a visualization of the contour of your land, okay? That's my recommendation. Now, if you want to do a different way to get above ground level of the buildings, you can. I'm just giving you an easy way to do it. All right, so, next one, J, location and dimensions of existing driveways, streets, parking and loading areas and walkways on the site.
There's none,
Yeah, so,
that needs to be updated.
so parking for customers, is that what you guys would like to see?
Well,
Well,
one
some
bay,
would be for customers either, I mean,
One
you
bay
have
is fine.
Right.
multiple vehicles and you have to have
Yeah,
parking for the to be worked on or to be picked up.
right, fair enough, yeah, so that would be one thing that I would take
Put it
this.
on- Just put it on the map, but.
Yeah, and with a proposal of where, well, I would show, number one, what the existing practices are. And if you're looking at a different area for that.
she's got space.
Yeah. All right, let's go to K, location of intersecting roads, driveways within 200 feet of site.
It's on the tax map. Oh,
Yeah.
no, it's not.
No, not the driveway,
That's bad.
yeah.
The latest is 7%.
Yeah, so we need driveways for these other properties.
Right,
Wherever they may be, and roughly the dimensions.
did you get that? So your butters on here, we need their driveway locations.
Off the main road.
If they're off the main road, like Harold
Within 200
Gilbert.
feet of your site.
Yeah,
And the Harold Grid on Reed Lane with me. It's
Okay,
on the
so
same
like-
right away.
right, and so he probably has a driveway going into his place off that right away?
Yeah.
Okay, and these other two properties as well. So we need, like, anybody within 200 feet of the site that you're talking about, make sure that driveway locations get put on the map. Location of open drainage courses, wetlands, stands of trees, and other important natural features. Again,
Already talked about
yeah,
the wetlands.
we've talked about the wetlands. If there's a pond, please show in relation to where that is to your property for us. I will say too, if,
Trees are on too.
yeah, trees, and especially anything over, I don't know.
24 inches, right?
Well, that's, yeah, but I think those are the ones we focus on, but, yeah, so. Any more details better. If you wanna take pictures and print them out, like full-size pictures on paper, so we can see it. Now, I'm betting money, the planning board, I say the planning board, this is my last meeting. The planning board will be, doing a site walk with you guys. And that'll be an open public thing for everybody to attend, but in preparation of that site walk, the more visual things that we can look at, the better.
Yep.
Okay. Location, front, dimensions, existing proposed signs, I think that's good. You guys good on that?
Well, I don't, there's location and there's dimensions, but there's no front view. No, those signs.
Oh, okay, yeah, maybe do a SketchUp of what your sign might look like.
Okay.
Yeah. And just include that as a separate piece of paper. Okay, so. Location, dimensions, and existing easements, and 10 copies of the existing covenants and deed restrictions.
It seems to have that.
Yeah. I didn't look through here. Are there any easements on here? Easement right away leading to Maplewood Lane. Okay. Easement deeds there. Okay.
Needed there.
Just to be clear, is the right of way deeded?
It's right there, close it right there in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it says,
Okay, gotcha.
In that first paragraph there.
warranty covenants.
All right.
Easement right way leading from Maple Road, so called upon over, across, and through certain parcels of land, now or formerly of Sarah G. Reed. So that's the easement.
Are you Sarah Reed?
No, I'm Cindy Wilson,
Okay.
and I bought Sarah Reed's property, the old post office and the one-room schoolhouse 26 years ago. I have the deed right here. The right-of-way, which is in my deed, which goes, I own both sides of the right-of-way, which is only the width of a car. It is not the width of a vehicle hauler or any of the other large equipment that's going through here, is for residential only. It is not for the kind of business that has been going on for 3.5 years. For parking, which I saw which you were just discussing, there have been customers who have left their cars to be repaired in my yard. In fact, one day I wasn't able to go to work because the car was left and blocked vehicles that I could not get out until one of these people came and picked it up. This is during the time that this was operating illegally as a garage. Now, to mention the easement and the right-of-way as well, that other property owned by Harold someone, his right-of-way was never legally given. That property was never legally added to a separate lot, according to my deed. So I'm just saying that for anyone to sit here and say it's only occasional. The other day I called the town office when David was here. I was up to 24 trips a little after 9 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. Now, I appreciate the background. I wouldn't ask, would you mind if we make a copy of that deed?
Not at all.
Okay, Lindsay, can you do that? All right. Yeah, we're gonna keep knocking through this list.
All right.
All right, and then, let's see.
I'm sorry? Yeah, we'll just proceed through this.
And then we'll get to more people. I just wanted to know about the deed.
That's what I was gonna bring up.
What do you got?
I would like you to read the ingress egress on the deed.
We don't even need to right now, though.
No, I know, it's just, well, I was talking about it and you read part of it, so I thought if you read the ingress egress of it, it would make.
Sure, yep, yeah, I mean.
Okay,
That
yeah.
determination
We're
would be
just-
made after
Later.
with the other application, right? We
Yeah,
can determine,
yeah.
I mean, at this point, we're just looking for completeness on this. We would determine if we could use the right way in the capacity he's using it when we entertain the application, I guess.
Absolutely.
So where were we, N?
Yep.
Those were in there, right?
I mean, they are, but if, if it's changed ownerships, then. that's
I mean, we've got something submitted, right? We're not judging whether it's
Right.
correct or not. We've got it in the submission, so it's
Okay.
there.
All right, so we're good on that, on
And
the existing, easements. So proposed development activity, now again, let's see, location of building setbacks, yard buffers required by all town ordinances.
I think that all falls under development activity.
Yeah.
He's not developing
Yeah,
anything.
he's not
so
building anything.
None of that's
Okay.
applicable.
All right. Supplemental information, is there anything that the board,
There's one thing here though, on the proposed development activity, I don't know if it applies or not, demonstration of any applicable state applications or
Right.
permits. You were asking about, licensure for garages. Yeah. I don't know that that's something we need to go into, but,
so,
maybe something we better know.
right, I don't, thank you.
Operating in a commercial garage. Gotta be what kinds of permits for that.
Right, so.
Do you know about the garage?
What's that?
Do you know what's the status of that when you have a garage? You have to get a license?
By the state.
A regular business license.
Yeah.
Do you have one?
No, you don't.
Okay.
You have to, obviously get through you guys before a lot of them.
So, that's one
And
thing.
that's more of the financial end of things, it's not.
Yeah. So, that's one thing that I would say, if you can find any information from the state regarding auto garages and any environmental rules that you have to meet through them for oil storage, for hazardous material storage, and show the board in your plan that you're aware of those and that you're capable of meeting those regulations, because going through the application process, those things will come out, especially by people who don't want you to have this, so.
They'll dig it up, and
Yeah.
they'll lay it in front of us.
So what JP is saying, that we're just gonna throw the application back at the, it's uncompleted.
Correct, yeah,
So
for right now,
so it
yeah.
may take you a while to get it.
Yes, okay. All right, Any other supplemental information that you guys would like to see on it?
No, I think there's plenty there.
Okay.
Plenty, he's
I
got
mean,
it.
again, like, I would just suggest, I mean, I know we're not going into the contents of stuff, but, it seems to me that this, easement may need to be, this may need to get updated, because if it's formally says formally of, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's gonna be something that the board's gonna have to look at too, is if there's a contestment in the deeds, and access. It's not the board's responsibility to resolve that, but we do need to have an idea of how that would be resolved and who to steer them to. So Lindsay, if you can reach out to MMA.
Yeah.
And just ask them a basic question. We have a proposed application that came in. There are concerns about the deeded right-of-way and the actual language of the updated deed that was purchased after that property was issued. Where the planning board should turn to, like in cases like that. And just see if they can give us a little bit of background information, please. All right. Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Probably you can't answer.
Can you tell us who you are, sir?
George Stibbler.
Okay.
I've been in town for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, we always just, we say it that way, when she takes notes, later, she can go name by name, so. That's why I was asking who you were earlier as well, not a confrontational thing, just,
If you approve this application with that copy of that deed, are you liable?
The town,
No.
oh,
This board
individually?
makes the decision.
I understand. So the way that the main law works for the planning board itself, individual planning board members are not liable to be sued as representatives of the town. Now, is the town liable? Yeah, the town can be liable, but there's an administrative process to look at that. So if this were approved and somebody wanted to contest it, they could go to the appeals board. The appeals board would take a look at it, make sure it either meets the ordinance or it does not. If it does not, then it can go to the main, which court is it? One of the main.
Circuit court, one of the circuit courts.
Circuit courts. And then it would be represented by the town from our town attorney and then whoever's contesting it on that side. So there's a process in place for that, but as individual board members, when you become a board member, you're not individually liable to be sued for planning board decisions. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. In saying that, the oath that we take as board members and the way that we run our business is it's all based off of ordinance to the T. These rules were voted in by the town and we have to stick to them. Now, there are, as you guys looked at earlier, there are some like really poorly worded things where things can be looked at 10 different ways from Sunday. And that's when we as a board discuss them and at times we ask for legal advice from the town attorney.
But the deed can't be.
What's that, contested?
Correct. We have to accept whatever deed is there. We can ask MMA, but we have to accept whatever deed is there.
Correct.
That takes precedence over what we have to do.
But so.
The deed right away prevents,
Well, and that's why it's being asked MMA. Listen, we have two deeds that say two different things.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, Tiffany.
Question.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer, but maybe for everybody else here. When you have an inconsistency like that with deeds, or there's a battle over property lines, am I correct in understanding that you cannot then approve it until that is resolved?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so.
We can't go ahead.
Yeah, but I want to get it in writing from MMA.
Yes,
Yeah.
please do.
Yeah.
So what's that mean ultimately, that these two are gonna have to come to some remedy on this deed, right? That seems to be the bigger issue than coming into compliance with what we've requested for the application.
I would say before, like, before we define that, we should see what MMA says.
Right, okay, agreed.
And then go from there.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, but she has the original deed before he does by a long shot.
so, yeah, we'll get some clarification, and, if you want to get with Lindsay afterwards, and get your contact information, with you guys, we can forward what MMA says, as we find out. MMA is the main municipal authority, they're who we use it, okay? All right, you had something else, sir?
Yes, just a question, after this meeting adjourns, and, is it another 30 days or 35 days? Or
So, since he doesn't have a complete application, this is just
That's
a
garage
pre-application.
continue.
Yes, that's my next question.
I don't think we could shut the garage
Hold on,
down.
hold on. So, to answer your first question, there's no ticking timeline until he submits a formal application for review to the board. That's when the timelines start. Does that make sense?
Oh, whenever he submits it, then it's 30 days.
Right.
Okay.
Whenever we accept a completed application,
Right.
which
But there's
has
gonna
to
be
be
other
completed first.
mitigating factors depending on what MMA says. If
Right.
MMA says you have.
Well, right, and that's
Okay.
us either accepting it as complete or saying we can't accept it as complete because the MMA says this. So the determining factor is when it's deemed complete. Yeah.
And I guess my other question is, in the interim, as of today, is he continue to work in the garage?
Not supposed to.
I don't think what
I
can the
know
planning
you-
board say about
Oh,
that? That would be
Yeah.
code
That
enforcement
is
officer
code
purview,
enforcement,
right?
and he told them they need to not do this.
Yeah, that has
So-
nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
I don't want to entertain that. you know?
Okay,
Wait a minute, he can't work in a garage on his personal stuff.
sure,
Yeah, but he is.
but he isn't.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
but-
and again, let's not even discuss
Yeah,
it. We don't,
that's
you
between
deal with
the code enforcement officer and the applicant.
Coming, starting on my property at 5 o'clock.
Okay. All right, are we done with this one?
All right,
Make a
so-
motion to
Wait, wait,
deny
do you
this?
have any other questions, Roger?
No.
Okay.
Get a little bit of a list written out there.
Okay, what we'll
What you
do,
need.
we'll write up a memorandum with the things that we identified that are missing, and we'll make sure and get you a copy of that. You guys got anything else?
Yeah, there's nothing in there that says, yeah, there's no gotcha in there.
Okay.
They got to work that.
All right, so unless you guys have anything else?
This is a pre-meeting, do we have to vote on
I mean,
it or not?
No,
Yeah,
No.
it's just a
Right.
pre-meeting.
All right.
yeah, this is an informal thing for them, for the applicant. So, unless you have any other questions, we'll get you that memorandum. And we're gonna wrap this portion up for the night.
We get a copy of it.
What's that, the memorandum? Yeah, if you get, yeah, it's a public document, so if you get with Lindsay, she can tell you how to do a FOIA request. It's a Freedom of Information Act request to get a copy of it. She's also the deputy clerk for the town, so it makes it easy, one-stop shop. All right. So, nothing left on that. So August 6th workshop, draft bylaws, rec marijuana, vote on finalize and establish bylaws, schedule another workshop if needed, okay? I don't, oh, yeah, we haven't got the other business yet, we got number 6 on here. So the bylaws, has everybody had a chance to look them over? Does anybody have any additional things that they'd like to change or discuss, comments, questions, or concerns? Okay, are you guys ready to vote on it?
Yes.
Okay. All those well, I make a motion to accept the bylaws as they stand.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. The ayes have it. All right. We have bylaws. Check.
Amen.
That's one thing I got done during my term. All right. Next one, rec marijuana. Now,
I think last time we talked about it, we were,
talking about scheduling a meeting with the select board.
yeah.
Yeah.
Check with you this week sometime on
Yep.
what I could have.
Yeah, I'll draft up a letter and send it out to you, of the list.
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Have a good night. So, yeah, what we were discussing was doing a meeting with the select board, and we're gonna ask them to draft a question to the public for vote, basically saying, should we opt in or out of recreational marijuana before the board tackles the whole zoning thing like we did with medicinal.
Do we need a meeting for that, or can we just put that request in?
Yeah.
An update on that, this is why I put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
I did contact Debbie, so I believe the next meeting at the 17th of September, and I haven't heard back from the selectmen or Debbie, so I don't know how it'll be worked out, but hopefully before your regular meeting, like 6 or 6:30. We'll work out the details on time, and I'll just keep you guys in the loop on that, like a workshop with the select board.
That's awesome.
Okay?
Okay. So you guys good on that? Anybody
I was just gonna ask
questions,
for a
comments,
copy
concerns?
of
No?
the
All right.
memorandum of the list of things that Mr. Romero has to correct.
Do we need any additional workshops
Did you ask it to me or you
going on?
emailed it to me?
You guys feel like there's anything we need to tackle?
Not much we can do until we hear back from the consultants.
So I would say that for September,
Oh, yeah.
you guys don't do a workshop. There's gonna be a town vote, so
Okay,
have enough
yeah,
around
I
that. Yeah.
And so would the.
That's the process that I understand. If you just
Hey,
contact David Ballard and just say, I have a FOIL request.
Lindsay, we're not gonna be doing a workshop, in the beginning of September.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, so, let's see.
Thank you.
No problem. Hey, there's a election coming up for board members, what you think about it?
What's his name?
All right,
What's his
you'll
name?
be my
Just
right
write
hand.
it in. What's his
Yeah.
name? He's my right hand.
All right, so now 7, other business. If I can get everybody to keep it down, just so we can get through the rest of this meeting. Mr. Anderson.
Yes, a couple of meetings ago, I asked the board to give me permission to ask the members a couple of questions. And I got everybody, but 2 people were not given the opportunity to give me their views. And I was wondering if I could do that now.
Because it's my property.
5 quick questions.
Put it to a vote. Wait.
That's right.
All right, I motion.
I'm sorry.
The MMA.
Yes.
5 quick questions from Mr. Anderson. Do I have a
In
second?
view of
All those in
the-
favor?
And I'm not asking to take it back.
Okay,
In view of the.
there has been what I feel a bit of an injustice, and I'd like to clear up whether or not, what the facts are,
Started this whole
basically.
thing when he bought the property.
Number
was the
1,
fact that I do have golden.
whenever Ms. Lane spoke, was she given permission to speak? Pruitt?
As I said, on any given day. There are usually
Given permission to speak.
So you can see.
Sometimes
That won't
it was requested and other times it wasn't.
Okay, but she was given permission whenever it was requested.
Correct.
Mr. Stacy?
All but one time, yes.
Okay. 2, did she ever state that she was a lawyer, Mr. Pruitt?
Never.
Mr. Stacy?
She said she represented Gerard.
No, you didn't answer
Yeah.
his question.
She said she represented Gerard.
However, does a person that represents you in Augusta have to be a lawyer? So represent, to my mind, has nothing to do with one's...
Well, listen.
Okay,
I gave you my answer.
please.
I gave you my answer.
3, did you believe she was a lawyer, Mr.
No.
Pruitt?
No.
Mr. Stacy?
No.
Okay, next question. Was Ms. Lane ever out of order in a meeting and disturbing the planning board? Mr. Pruitt?
Well, there were a lot of mitigating factors as far as I could see. I thought she held herself very well and she was not out of order probably 99% of the time.
Mr. Stacy?
I do not believe she was out of order, no.
Last question. Did Ms. Lane do anything in any way that was not appropriate for a citizen of this country?
No, she did nothing inappropriate for a citizen of this country and a member of this community.
Mr. Stacy?
I have no reference point on that, so, no.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Where are you going with this?
What I am doing is trying to change a letter that was sent by the Attorney General's office regarding the planning board and Miss Lane's activities that was threatening and was sent by the town lawyer by the request of the town. And I presume it was sent by the select board. But it was about things that happened in the planning board. And therefore, I wanted what the planning board's opinions were.
Understood.
It's on the record now.
Thank you.
Additionally, for the record, there's a statement Ms. Lane asked me to clarify. So she wrote a number of emails to the planning board, basically voicing her concern and misleading some of the facts in there. I responded to those emails. On March 20th, 2019, an email titled FOIA that must be adhered to for appeals deadline, Watson Woods preliminary plan approval. I wrote, our board has gone well beyond accommodating your and Mr. Clifford's outbursts and continued distractions during formal meetings, which on one or more half a dozen occasions result in the expulsion of Mr. Clifford from public meetings.
We are not discussing Mr. Clifford here in this.
No, this is in regards to Ms. Lane. This is an email to Ms. Lane.
When was she asked to leave, or when was she?
If you'll allow me to finish.
Of course.
Okay. So, in that statement, as well as on an email on the 25th of March, I wrote, as a board, we have welcomed your and your client's input on numerous matters that you have also been warned expelled during meetings on a number of occasions. Now, Ms. Lane, give me a second, man.
No, I'm just asking for more clarification.
You'll get it, you just gotta wait for it.
Okay.
Ms. Lane said that in reading that, she felt that that looped her into that statement that she had been expelled and that she had been, outbursting. Now, I clarified that this is an error and might have led the reader to believe that you, Ms. Lane, have been expelled from one of our planning board meetings, which has not been the case. If anyone requires further clarification, comments, or questions or concerns, please have them contact me. She has not been expelled from meetings. She has spoken out of line. She has been asked to wait until called upon for questions. And she has, along with the person that she was representing, which is where this whole thing got muddled up in. You know, she took on this representation for Mr. Clifford, and that was not from the planning board. That was some meeting that she said that she had, I think with the select board or one of the ones I wasn't here, where she felt she needed to represent somebody to be able to speak here. I've never voiced that an outside member needs to be representing somebody from planning, from Parsonsfield to speak on their behalf. I've expressed that to her, and that's where this all gets muddled up, because when she took that for Gerard Clifford as his representative thing, that decision was made by the lawyer and the select board because of her emails, which were forwarded to them for action taken. That was not the planning board. That was not. The planning board had concerns about Mr. Clifford's outbursts and getting kicked out. That's what was being addressed at the time. This was looped into that, I understand that.
And what has been done?
What's been done?
Yeah.
Well.
Has the office in Augusta been notified of this? Because obviously the allegations weighed against her. This was written by the select board and was, the hired gun lawyer who wrote that.
So
now, I don't think that the allegations made, and I have the letter that was sent by FOIA, by the lawyer to the Attorney General's office, and I found that absolutely bent out of rational shape. And I think there is a need for you guys to get behind some sort of an apology and for the Attorney General to rescind what he said.
Mr. Anderson, regardless of how I might feel about this, I don't think that's our role. We didn't instigate that letter, we didn't ask for it. We
Well-
made that real clear. And I think if you want, you're well within your rights and to have this opinion, to bring it here. And I welcome the fact that you do, but I think you should bring it to the select board.
Okay, but I wanted to question all of you.
Sure.
To get your, because if I go in there and I say, the planning board is this or that, and I don't know for sure, that's ridiculous.
Okay.
That's fair enough. I would say that, just make sure, when you do represent the planning board in your discussion to the select board.
I'm not representing
Well, I mean,
the
not
planning
represent, but when you do reference, the information that you found, make sure that it's on point. You know, you don't wanna speak out.
I don't wanna be looped in all this.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I didn't wanna answer to begin with, because like, this isn't ideal, has nothing to do with us, and I feel like my words are gonna be twisted right around.
Well, we got this on tape.
Right.
Yeah, I don't agree that it does have some stuff to do, it does have to do with us as well, because of all the outbursts that went on with Gerard. And it came to a head, and I believe that JP had conversations with the select board on this.
I think we're getting too,
We gotta go on to-
we're getting to a
I
point,
understand.
this is all put out to the town, we're not allowed to discuss this stuff without certain things being done, so we need to stop this right now, actually.
I think we should be involved though,
We're going too far with the discussion about individuals, so we have to stop, what other business do we have?
Vote to go into executive session.
Right now?
Right now. Quick, it will be quick.
Employment matters.
This was put down, it's got nothing to do with employment matters, I don't know why it was under personal reputation, the statute allows for us to discuss stuff in executive session without the public here, without record name, if it involves the reputation of an individual in the town.
So what are you doing, you putting forward a motion to vote on the executive session?
I don't know enough about that.
So, Lindsay?
Well, David Laurie, I got a letter from Debbie. Says that specific section pertains to employment matters only. However, he does say that in the no trespass order,
Wait a
you
minute,
can
you can't get into that, because that's.
not exactly, but it's his.
Can I see is this a email from Mr. Laurie?
I got dumped on my desk this afternoon, I wasn't here.
Okay.
But, he says in that order, you can, within reason, let's see, if there's a compelling need for your physical presence, you can make an exception from the select board. So you guys could petition with the select board if you want to handle any matters regarding that person.
Okay.
And take it that way.
So.
That's an option.
Whose request is this? Is this yours?
I requested it.
Okay. Okay.
I think if he requests it, we at least have to go through the process, right? If he gets a second and we vote on it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the procedure.
Right. I'll say before we vote, my concern is whenever we talk about executive sessions, we should have the town attorney either present on the phone.
That would be ideal, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, we don't have to.
Right, I'm saying should, because it protects us from any liability. Also, I would like to give the select board a heads up, like, hey, this is something that's gonna happen, just because I imagine is it applicable to them, whatever we're talking about?
Yes or no?
Are you a lawyer now?
No. I can see it both ways.
Yeah.
You know, it's better to say yes because it involves some spillover from their actions.
Okay.
So we should involve them.
I don't mind involving them. I just feel like this stuff is simmering.
Yeah.
And it would be better to deal with it one way or another. I don't think I would do it.
Yeah.
And, but it's been 3 months that I've been requesting.
Correct, yeah,
And
I know.
I'd like to see it get done, that's all.
Okay.
So,
So,
we do it.
Lindsay, can you talk with Debbie and see if she can coordinate with the select board to do an
We're meeting with them anyway about the medical the recreational marijuana.
Maybe we can
Maybe
tie
we
it
can
in
roll
with
it in then too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. What other business do we have, gentlemen?
I think we gotta make a vote of thanks to Mr. Espinoza for his notorious service as chairman of the board.
Notorious.
It's been a delight.
Not notorious, notorious.
Notorious.
I think he meant meritorious.
Yeah, that's contiguous, right?
Maybe not.
Notorious.
Good night, everybody.
Night. Mr. Ryan,
I didn't make the last meeting. Have you guys done like an AR on the medical marijuana votes yet and what you're doing?
What an AR?
it's an after action review.
Yeah.
Okay.
We discussed, how it pertains to the recreational portion, that since the, vote was not approved, before we do the legwork, on recreational zoning, we want to ask the basic question first, and perhaps that should have been done on the medical side, but you know, we were under time crunch to get that done, and we wanted to do it all at once. Now, as far as like resubmitting a plan, I think what you're getting at. Now, it's my understanding that after a vote takes place, it's a 2-year waiting period, because that's what we discussed.
That's what's written in the ordinance.
Well, if you look at page 12 of the land use ordinance, land use repetitive petition, that's for things to change existing ordinances.
Right.
You voting in a brand new ordinance isn't exactly covered, and it's also in there that an 80% vote of the planning board's regular attendance overrides that, for that exact reason. That way you can put things forward that are, like, so what we do, we essentially did a moratorium. They said, okay, we don't want a 2-year moratorium on medical marijuana, so that got voted down. Then we came in, we said, well, that got voted down, so we put a pretty progressive set of ordinances forward, but that was too far in the other direction, so it got voted down. And the idea is to come back and put something in there that's gonna be voted for, that's in between the two. Because if you don't, you essentially are upholding like an illegitimate moratorium.
So I will say that so the reason that we took on the original drafting of the ordinance was at the request of the select board.
Yeah.
You know, and the select board has not gotten back to the board about doing it up again. And I don't know if the board going forward like wants to do that, or if that would be something that would be better requested through the select board to
Well, it's
put
specific
the
to this
planning board
group.
on task for it.
In the book, I mean, it's specific to this group.
Right.
Taking 80% vote, they wanna go back and put another set forward. And, I mean, it seems pretty clear to me that.
I think it's possible.
Not doing that essentially makes it illegitimate moratorium. And the state is asking towns to opt in at some level, even if it is opting in at like 0, they want something done.
That is a different issue.
So if you look at the repetitive petition, the clause is there for a reason. It's so that people don't abuse trying to change a small, excuse me guys, so they don't change a small thing and just keep attacking it.
Right.
But it's made to be flexible so that when you have to do things like shoreline zoning, things like that that need to be in effect, like say shoreline zoning went down, it wouldn't have been all right to wait 2 years to put another one in. You know, the idea would be you need to continue to put something in there until it's accepted, unless it's been expressly said that it would be prohibited.
So my understanding is that the state of Maine has said the towns have to opt in.
Yeah.
Not opt out. They have to opt in.
Mhm.
And so the vote that took place was on each specific like venue of the commercial sales of medical marijuana, and those were not accepted. Those were not opted in.
Right.
So I'm not saying that it's not possible for the board to go back and use that clause, but what I am saying is that would be I think, a tasking from the select board to the planning board for us to go back and them say, hey, you guys take another stab at it, a little bit more conservative this time, but again, we were going off of the input that we had throughout the process,
I mean, the
so.
difference is like, in some of them was literally 3 votes.
I understand, but
You
it's
know,
still
so
3
it's like-
votes in the negative, not in the positive, you know, like, so we can't,
Right.
we can't say, well, this went by 90%. Like, let's tackle that one. We need something from the select board saying, hey, listen, you guys need to rehash this again.
But-
Unless the board wants to do it.
Well, I think maybe you should take your battle right to the select board, make an appointment with them, say, listen, we can't leave this.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna end up back here anyway.
Right, so,
They skip the whole thing and just do it.
well, we're at night too, but it has to come from the select board.
I would
No,
have a
it's-
hard time
in the
voting
petition, it
for
doesn't say
something against the, you know, the opinion of the towns expressed by a popular vote.
Mhm.
That's, you know, unless there's some really compelling reason to do so.
Why don't we just put it on we'll
so
discuss
that's
it
what we're
During the
trying to say.
workshop, yeah.
During this, it's on the 17th when we're already talking about the recreational.
Right,
Okay.
but what we're talking about is the will of the town was that we weren't going to have a moratorium on it. Now, the will of the town might not have been that they wanted
We
it wide
didn't
open.
have a moratorium.
Right, we had a vote on it, and it
Right.
got voted down. They said, hey,
Right.
we don't want a moratorium on this.
And there's the people
Right, and then-
there
and
at the
then-
meeting, but the vote was people coming in from everywhere.
Mhm.
Remember,
Yes.
that was a,
The numbers were similar.
Yeah, but so
yeah.
regardless of the numbers, the end state is, we didn't have a moratorium, we had a vote on the specific issue, and it wasn't voted through, so, yeah, are you saying because the moratorium didn't pass, like, we shouldn't
Well, this
accept a no?
They
Like,
were
this
two
doesn't make
separate
sense.
issues. There were
Yeah.
two separate issues. The moratorium was on medical
Right.
marijuana,
Yes.
period. This was on a specific
Zoning.
designated zoning ordinance.
No.
That's what was defeated.
So the moratorium as it was written, because we all remember the language, addressed these exact
Right.
things. Manufacturing, testing,
Right.
retail shops, and people said, no, we don't want that banned.
I just don't see the correlation between the moratorium being voted down and then the actual zoning being voted down.
Sounds like we need a survey.
Well, so obviously, what you're looking at is a vague question, yes or no, on do you want medical marijuana, which is what the moratorium vote was, right?
Mhm.
We can all kind of see that. It's, do you want to see these types of operations in this town, or do you want to have a moratorium of 2 years and not see them?
Well,
And they said, well, we don't want a moratorium. They didn't say we want all of these things, but now we put them in front of them and they said, well, we don't want it that open.
Mhm.
And so it would make sense to me that there's a in between. We've had 2 votes, one that says, you know, I don't want it wide open, and another one that says, we do want this at some level. So it seems natural to fall somewhere in the middle and have some sort of ordinance that could be voted on. Especially considering how close it was already, it's like, I mean, a small adjustment on it might even do it. Or even more education. I know a lot of people expected to go to a meeting that day.
Well, there was due
Education,
process.
because we've had so many public hearings, like
Well, I
we
meant
did
more
our
on-
education.
I meant more on the process. A lot of people showed up when I was here, you know, for the vote that day, and were like, where's the meeting? And I'm like, there's no meeting. They're like, well, how do I, what is this thing? And I'm like, that's the
called
vote.
voting.
This is a vote. You go vote.
Yeah.
People, like when I watched the count, some people mark the end. Some people put their X's in the use columns.
You're supposed to look at their votes.
So,
Well, I
wait,
will tell you,
Todd.
I will tell you, the 2-year does not apply to this.
Mhm.
Because these are ordinances. It's happened back in the early 2000s when the state said that our ordinances were no good, so we were under receivership.
Mhm.
And we had all of our ordinances voted, they voted against them. Now, we could have come back in 6 months or a year, but we waited, I think we waited 2 years.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not sure, because I'm not sure when they voted it out, it was a special meeting, or if it was an actual annual meeting. But we came back and voted on them again.
Mhm.
The 2-year doesn't matter, it's whether or not you want to try and rewrite these ordinances and have a vote. And I will tell you that most people didn't know. And as a matter of fact, they didn't post it until when, Jeff?
And there was an
Or when
ad
did they
in the
put it
Times.
up? Or when
No,
did
that
they
was-
put it up? Now, I saw it 2 weeks before.
Yeah, I think the ad was
I
done for
saw
like
it
a
in the
month.
paper.
Yeah.
But I think something as important as this maybe should have held off until,
Now, again, that was the select board's decision because the
I know, but the select board was against it. So it was almost like this thing was stacked up against it, against that particular vote in the first place. So they kind of stacked it up against it. It should have been voted on that Friday. And I'm not sure that you're gonna get much more than what you got. But I think, I talked to several people and said, well, what do you mean what vote? And if you can find 10 of those people, then several of these ordinances pass.
Plus there was.
It was
error in the
poorly put
advertising.
together, it was poorly put together because I believe the select board was against it anyways. Now, that's my opinion, but I'm gonna tell you.
our authority though as a board, right? Let's
I
talk about that.
understand that, but
Yeah.
you can, as a board, go right back at this.
Okay, so we will discuss it with the selectmen and see if
Right.
we're able to get another, we can look at getting another vote together and maybe making it more vague, like we've already talked about doing the recreational side. Because, again, like, we were already 75% through like drafting this stuff when all of a sudden we were kind of forced to keep going and pushing with it and we already have more than halfway there. So at the time we figured, well, you know what, let's just hand them like a final product of here's our ordinance. And I agree, in hindsight
It was your ordinances.
It was.
And you shouldn't have been pushed. This is your preview, and you should have done it in your time.
Yeah.
Not
Great.
theirs.
We were
Well, it
also,
wasn't
we were
necessarily
also trying to
just
accommodate a new business that we had voted for.
Since we're going by
Right.
the rules
Yeah.
here,
So
I have no problem
we
with
are
that.
now to motion to
But I just
adjourn.
want everyone to
So-
So
see
wait, I have a question.
the repetitive.
What was the vote?
Hmm.
What was the vote?
No
Geez,
on
I
everything,
painted the place.
basically.
Not everybody voted no, though.
No,
What
no.
was the
Oh, I
vote?
don't know the numbers exactly.
Yeah.
Anywhere from
So-
maybe 9
Alright.
to 3, depending on the
9 to
person.
3,
Alright.
Sean?
Variations in there.
But you can get with the town office and get your copy out. So, yeah, going forward, on the agenda with the selectmen, it'll be to discuss revisiting the main medical portion. Mr. Anderson.
JP, I didn't intend to say anything about this at all. Going and looking at that ballot, it was the most confusing ballot I have ever read in my entire
It was.
life.
I
You
heard
had
that.
5 questions, you had a key on the front, you had 5 questions, 3 on the back, and you had to keep flipping everything over to see what applied where. And look,
I know.
I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I do have a college degree, and I had a hell of a time.
Can I suggest we adjourn?
Yeah.
This could go on all night.
Yeah. That's noted, and I know that
It was executive.
the select board was aware that it was confusing because it was heard by many people, right? Many people said that. And honestly, like, I think it's how it got translated from what we did to the select board. Lindsay?
Well, I was gonna say, the entire thing was really confusing, that was a general consensus of that, and I'm not against it, but people don't know what they're voting on, they're gonna be like, no.
Right.
Then I think it lacked a little bit of wording.
I mean, you were there for the vote, there was literally people that
All right.
in the use.
I second.
Second?
Which I mean.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, we're adjourned at 9 o'clock.
It should be.